Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa is apparently quite close to the house and about to arrive at the Tutu residence to pay respect to the family. Let's find out just how far the president is at this time. Our reporter Mariska has been monitoring for us just outside the Archbishop's family home and certainly can tell us and give us an update, in fact, at this time as to what we're hearing in terms of the whereabouts of the president, who is expected to shortly arrive. Well, good afternoon once again to you, Mariska. Take us through what's going on at the moment and what the expectations are. Of course, we do understand that most of you that have been stationed outside have been anticipating the arrival, as we earlier indicated about an hour ago, that the president is expected to arrive. So let us know what's going on at this time.
Thank you very much, Flo. Yes, indeed, you are absolutely correct. I'm standing behind the camera at this moment because, as you mentioned earlier, there's a scurry with all the news agencies that are here trying to get a spot, trying to get the best visuals of when the president does come. Yes, his arrival is imminent. As you can see there, my colleague Pam Zokufa is just panning towards our colleagues in the media that are stationed here. So although we're standing outside, there is no space outside. If you can believe that. But nonetheless, outside the house now is gathered Dr. Mampela Rampele. She's, of course, a family spokesperson at this stage. She was requested by Malaya Tutu to speak on behalf of the family. She's waiting outside, standing there. And, of course, the chairperson of the Desmond and Leia Tutu Legacy Foundation also standing next to her there. And then also the Patricia de Lille, we saw her a little bit earlier. There she is, standing right next to Dr. Mampela Rampele. They're all awaiting the president's arrival, and the little group of men you see to the right of the frame are all the close-knit people to the president himself. So when you see them somewhere, you know that the president is on his way. That's Benny Gool coming out, and we understand he is around the corner. So we're just going to keep the picture there, let's just hear what Benny Gool has to say.
Any of you?
He just came to find out what our plans are if the president does come. We did indicate to his personnel, to the president's personnel, that we would like to speak to him or just get a word from him live as to what message he's bringing to the Tutu family, and of course what the arrangements will be for the funeral, what class of funeral it will be, whether it will be a class funeral. Desmond Tutu was, of course, a man of peace and love. He was not one for pomp and ceremony himself. He drove a modest car all his life. So it will be interesting to hear if there will be a class ceremony at this stage, to hear from the president. As you can see, some of his other family members, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, his family members stepping outside, also awaiting the arrival of the president. We don't hear any sirens at this stage, and we don't see any of the cars at this stage, but the people gathered shows you that they are expecting his arrival at any moment. It has been a long day, especially for Malaya Tutu, with all the well-wishers and people who came to show their respects and condolences on the passing of her husband. I saw a picture a little bit earlier from Gift of the Givers, where Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman visited Malaya, and she was very distraught. So it's been a tough day for her. You can understand that. Her partner of so many years is gone. So I think the president might be the last of the dignitaries to arrive here to pay their respects. And then maybe she'll take a bit of a rest. It's still a long week ahead. But we are waiting the arrival of the president, and that should be any moment. And we will stay live all the time, so you won't miss anything.
Did hear from the president just yesterday, President Cyril Ramaphosa paying tribute to the late Archbishop, saying that, not only has South Africa lost one of its finest patriots, but that, the nation's lost one of its most courageous and most loved, amongst us. We heard the president yesterday just addressing us on television just hours, of course, after it emerged that the Archbishop had passed away. And I mean, certainly those are some of the things that we are hearing today. I mean, being so close to where his home is, where he lives, around people that would have been around him. I mean, I'm sure, Mariska, these are the shared sentiments of many as the president does indeed make his way to the home.
Yes, indeed, you are absolutely correct. For anyone who's never met Archbishop Desmond Tutu, it's not difficult to tell that he was not a big man. He was quite small. I myself, if I stood in front of him, and I've had the privilege several times to meet with him and speak with him, he reached my shoulder. He was very tiny, but do not ever make the mistake of assuming that because he is a short man and small in stature, that he is not a colossal in thought and in the way he acts and the way he responds to people, situations. He was an absolute giant when it came to dealing with everyday life. And he was as friendly to his neighbors as he was to statesmen and women. He would treat a president of a country the same way he would treat someone who's lived next to him for several years. He was just that kind of person. So definitely what President Cyril Ramaphosa said was echoed by so many people. In fact, everyone we speak to. Earlier, Trevor Manuel was here, of course, the former Minister of Finance, and he was quite emotional. And a little time ago, about half an hour or so, the ANC in the Western Cape's representative was here, Faiz Jacobs, and he was weeping. He was crying. And he mentioned that the Archbishop said he will pray for the downfall of the ANC. He mentioned it on camera, but he said shortly before his passing, now recently, in his conversations with the Archbishop, he said that he would pray that things will get better for the party. So whether it's political party members, whether it's ordinary people on the street, whether it's reporters, he was quite friendly with us. And you would think that a person of that stature would get quite tired of all the media attention. He was always friendly and polite, and he treated us exactly the same way as he would have treated anybody else. There was no airs about him. So definitely what the President said is true. For anyone who's had the privilege to meet him, they can attest to that. He was the same with me as he was with the President and as he was with his neighbours, who we saw yesterday, and was also quite distraught at his passing. And it's quite astonishing if you think that he was 90 years old. At that age, people do get frail. He was sick, so his passing was not unexpected, but still the loss, as Trevor Manuel told us, nonetheless is still as great, and especially for those who were very close to him. It's a difficult day for them, and so many of the people who spoke to us, including Cheryl Carolus, struggle stalwart, of course, and she was a High Commissioner in London for South Africa. She was also just as emotional. So you are absolutely right, Flo. All those sentiments expressed by the President is felt by everyone that we've been in contact with and what we've seen. We're just checking to our right. My colleague Pam Zakufa indicated to me that she sees something down the road.
Yeah.
It might be, at this stage, any glimmer in the distance could be the President.
Well, Mariska, in the meantime, while we are indeed waiting for the President to arrive, let's talk about some of the honours and tributes that will be bestowed upon him, and also, just in preparation of the funeral on Saturday. Of course, we did hear from the Cape Town mayor, the city of Cape Town mayor, yesterday that the Table Mountain, for example, was to be lit up in purple. I did happen to see some of those pictures on social media, and so it would be interesting to know what else the government might perhaps be planning, not just the city of Cape Town, but certainly the government at large. What will be planning in terms of honouring the late Archbishop? What are you hearing at this time? I mean, we did certainly get an indication from President Cyril Ramaphosa, whom of course we are awaiting at this time, that there will certainly be something in honour. And of course, the preparations need to happen quite quickly, given that the funeral, as you have been indicating to us, that the Archbishop insisted that the funeral take place within a week's time. So obviously everything having to happen quite quickly. What are we hearing at this stage about those honours in the meantime?
At this stage, there's nothing that I can confirm myself. We haven't heard anything from the horse's mouth yet, but that is definitely something we would like to hear from the President himself, or perhaps anyone close to him that could maybe speak to whether the Archbishop will be buried in accordance with a certain class. That's something that we're waiting to find out. We suspect that it might be, given the statue, the nature of who Desmond Tutu was, it would only be fitting. But it would be interesting to find out from the President himself if that is the case, and how that would unfold, how it would work, because the military would be involved in a funeral like that. So we'll definitely find that out from the President if we do get an opportunity to speak to him. We do hope so. But other than that, of course, so many memorial services taking place, so many honours bestowed on him through messages, through writing, through music, through art. So there's so many things happening at the same time. And as you heard Archbishop Thabo Makgoba speaking there earlier, asking people not to flood into buses and make their way to Cape Town, but to rather take part at services that will be held across the city and across the country and the world to remember Archbishop Desmond Tutu. But as to those honours that you're speaking about, that's certainly something that we would like clarity on, and just to hear from the President or his team on whether or not there will be a class, a burial, and what that would entail, seeing that the military would be involved in a certain type of funeral. And that is not who the Archbishop was. He was a man of peace, and he certainly always preached it, and he was not shy to speak his mind when it came to issues like that.
So Mariska, one of the things that I'm particularly concerned about, while I watch these visuals, as we have the camera to the house of the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, is, the issue of COVID-19 protocols. No doubt, being the big person that he was, people want to gather. Yes. I mean, even now, I'm just looking at the numbers, and they're slowly increasing, and I'm assuming, when the President arrives, those numbers will even be worse. I mean, has there been any sort of conversation around that? I heard Archbishop Thabo Makgoba, when he was announcing those events that will take place leading up to Saturday's funeral, talking about the fact that, people that are indeed churchgoers and are Anglican, like the Archbishop was, should stay in their parishes and not try to go to where the main proceedings will be happening. So certainly I heard that kind of conversations in terms of COVID-19 protocols. But other than that, I haven't really heard much about, the respect around COVID-19 protocols. I mean, I'm just looking now, people are walking in. And we have also spoken, Mariska, about, Mamlia's elderly too, the wife of the late Archbishop. So this is also something that needs to be taken into account. I mean, has there been a mention of that?
You are absolutely correct, Flo. She is elderly herself. I mean, and she's not been in the best of health of late herself. And now this, of course, is a great shock, the loss of her husband. Or it's deeply saddening for her, the loss of her husband. So she is frail. You can imagine that she would be frail. COVID-19 is a big consideration, and that's one of the reasons why we were not prevented to get as close to the house as you would normally be able to do if you did come to this area to visit the Tutu residence. Well, in previous years, not so much of late, but definitely Archbishop Makgoba made it very clear from the start that COVID-19 regulations has to be adhered. We are still in a fourth wave within the Western Cape. The numbers are still ticking up. So definitely it is a great concern, it is a great worry. And that's why also we are set up here outside and not inside some enclosed space. There is a tent put up now here for us for a bit of shade and to shield us from the rain. But COVID-19 is a big concern. You are absolutely right when it comes to Mamlia herself and even the Archer's other children. They would also be in the older age group, so it's definitely something that needs to be adhered to. And as you can see in the visuals there, everybody that's present outside here is wearing their masks, their sanitizer bottles outside. So people can expect that on Saturday with the funeral, people will not be allowed inside the church. There will only be a certain number of people allowed inside the church for that service. And that is why the Archbishop is encouraging people to celebrate the Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu at their own parishes, even at home if they can, which is the safest option when it comes to COVID-19. So it will definitely be a very, very strict event on Saturday. Very limited numbers of people will be allowed in, and certainly nobody without specific accreditation. And for us as the media who has covered the Archbishop before, you are assigned a space within the St. George's Cathedral, and that's where you need to stay. And certainly I think those kind of protocols will just be sharpened on that day to ensure that, you know, everything is adhered to. It is quite a difficult situation because Archbishop Tutu was a man of love, and he was a man of the people. He was fond of people, very much so. But on this day it will be very different. Flo, as I'm speaking to you now, you cannot see it yet, but here comes the President's cavalcade. They are turning. My colleague Pamza Kufa will be panning to the right. You will see the President's motorcade arriving now. He's turning into the streets, so we can expect images of him greeting the family, and of course Mampela Rampele standing there, the family spokesperson, to greet the President. Yes, there his motorcade has turned in. You will see it shortly. There it comes. Dr. Mampela Rampele stepping forward. She will be one of the people to greet the President. So I'm just going to let the visuals play for a little bit so we can see a bit of that interaction.
And I mean, we do remember, you know, during the time of Nelson Mandela's passing at this time, you know, there was a somber mood within, you know, the city of Johannesburg, you know, where I was stationed at the time. And I'm sure it's the same sort of sense in the city of Cape Town. I'm sure you could talk to that in the meantime.
Yes, you know, when former President Nelson Mandela passed away, of course, it was such mixed feelings, and people poured out onto the streets in their numbers. There were flowers that was placed at the City Hall in Cape Town, of course, where he made his speech as a free man for the first time speaking to the world. And people literally showed it with their bodies and in person. They poured out onto the streets, to residences where Madiba stayed, at Parliament. But this time around, there isn't much of that. I think by now people do understand that COVID-19 is no friend of gatherings. So I do think that people are trying to adhere to that, and that's why they're listening closely to all the broadcasts and information that we can give, because as much as they would have wanted to come and maybe show their support and love, they are also mindful that, as you said, Flo, Mamlia is also of an advanced age at this stage, so not much people, certainly without an appointment, arriving. Those that did come to the house were warmly greeted by family members, went inside the house and came out again. So as much as I think as people would have liked to have shown that emotion as they did with the passing of Madiba, there is not much of that taking place now. Of course, we don't know how the rest of the week will unfold. Today is still a public holiday, of course, and certainly the City Hall is one of those places being lit up, as you also mentioned before, in purple, in remembrance of the Arch. So if anything happens there, if people want to go anywhere, that would be the place to also show their respects. And of course, St. George's Cathedral is iconic. So we will see later in the week, perhaps people will bring flowers there, that kind of outpouring that you and I saw with the passing of Madiba, in that way. But not much of that at this stage. I think really COVID-19 has put a damper, if you will, on people being able to express themselves in that kind of way.
I mean, I just saw the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, just waving there at those of you in the media that are just gathered there outside their home. Is there an indication or possibility perhaps that, you know, the President will indeed have a word with the media? I mean, we were talking earlier, Mariska, about the fact that, you know, we haven't really heard much in terms of what government will be doing in this week leading up to the funeral. Are we getting any sort of indication that perhaps we might get a bit of an idea? I'm assuming after the President has spoken to Mamlia and the rest of the family. And I do expect that he would be in there for quite some time.
Absolutely. I mean, this would be, I would think he would want a private moment with Mamlia. And I would think that, yes, this visit might be longer than the others. The longest visit we did see today was from Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. She was in the home for quite some time, at least half an hour. Of course, she's the former Deputy President of South Africa. But we do expect the President to spend some time with the Tutu family, and I would think that he would want to step aside with Mamlia and speak to her privately as well. And we did indicate to the President's personnel that we would love to hear from the President as far as plans from national government, to get it officially and get the word from them as to what it is that they're planning and what we will see Saturday, to understand what the planning is around it. Of course, Archbishop Thabo Makgoba said to us on day one, on Sunday, yesterday, when we heard about his passing, that arrangements are made in conjunction with national government. He confirmed that with the city. So those different spheres of government, if you will be working together on a funeral of this magnitude. And given who he was, I mean, the mayor of Cape Town, Jordan Hill Lewis, called him Cape Town's most famous resident, Cape Town's most miraculous resident, if you will. So he's got that stature. So we are hoping to hear from the President if national government will do something in accordance to the stature of who he was. And we did indicate that we would love to speak to the President. We were a little bit cheeky and indicated to them here in the road where we would want the President to stand, for all of us to be able to reach him and to speak to him, as we are behind barriers at this stage. So Flo, we are holding thumbs that we will be able to speak to the President as soon as he comes out of the home.
All right, Mariska, many thanks to you. Let's catch up later on. Certainly we're waiting while the President is inside the home of the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, no doubt having conversations with his wife Leah and the family. Of course, conveying his condolences from government and the President himself, but also he'll probably get an indication from the family as to their wishes for the funeral. That, of course, we did get confirmation that it will be held this Saturday.